Hello everyone, welcome to another video, and it's Monday morning, so of course that means it's time for another GT Sport Daily Race C strategy guide. And this week's race is at the Cathedral of Speed itself, Autodromo Nazionale Monza, and we are in Group 3 machinery. So let's take a look at the settings for this one. They are a little bit different to the last time we visited this circuit in Group 3, and we have the fuel consumption at ×6, tyre wear at ×13, 10 laps to get round, and we have the racing medium and the racing hard tyre both available. I'm going to assume that the racing hard tyre will be mandatory, and we don't usually look at this, but it was important for this race. Refuelling is at 7 litres a second. So the circuit itself needs no introduction. It's of course Monza, better known as the Cathedral of Speed, in northern Italy, just outside Milan. Long straights, tight chicanes. You need a car with plenty of oomph down the straights, and a car that can kind of abuse the curves as well, to get a sort of good lap time in this one, to give you the confidence through the chicanes. And the car of choice for me in this one, I think it's going to be a bit of an outside bet, is the big cat itself. It's the Jaguar F-Type Group 3. Now, I raced this car in a sort of league race fairly recently around Monza. It certainly is not lacking the horsepower for the track, and it's very good over the curves, particularly into the second chicane where you can really kind of attack it. Of course, cars like the GTR, the Aston Martin is very much in favour in Group 3 at the moment. Something like the Corvette and maybe even the Peugeot Vision Gran Turismo are all going to be very popular or strong around this combination, I believe. But one big element of this race is going to be fuel. As you've seen from the settings, we have fuel set at ×6. Last time we visited here, fuel was only at ×2. Tyre wear was only at ×9. But fuel for this one, as I said, is set at ×6, and it's very much going to be a fuel saving race. Now, if I drive the Jaguar at full throttle without any kind of fuel saving, it is good for about 5.5 laps. That was roughly the same as what the Aston Martin was doing, and also the GTR, and also the Corvette as well, and that was really the only cars that I tested. So fuel saving is going to be very important for this one. Now, what I've done here is sort of run it until the tank is empty. In the Jaguar, you're just going to get an idea on how long you're going to be sitting in the pit lane if you don't do any fuel saving, and you have to sort of refill the tank. So, as I've been yapping on here, the car is still sitting stationary. We're still not reached the sort of 5 laps that we need to get going. And eventually, the fuel is in. We've been stationary for 20.2 seconds, and the pit time at 26.8. And that was to take on 87% of fuel. So we went round there a couple of laps, and this time we're going to only take on 64% of fuel, I believe. And we'll get an idea of just how much shorter the pit time is. We're still going to be stationary for quite a long time, taking in this amount of fuel. But we are just about there now. There we go. Fuel is in. So that was 64% fuel. Stationary for 16.3 seconds. It's just 4 seconds less than when we took on 87% fuel. And a final stop here. We're going to take on even less fuel than the last stop. On this one, we're only going to take on 50% fuel. Again, still stationary for quite a long time, certainly in terms of a pit stop in Gran Turismo Sport in a daily race C. So there you go, 50% fuel in, stationary time 14 seconds, pit time at 20.6 a second. So you can see the difference there in the fuel saving. Now, the reason I've sort of shown you that is because if I do some fuel saving in the Jaguar, around about 50% fuel is all I need to take on, whereas if I kind of drive it flat out, it's around about 85 to 90% fuel. So a 6 second gain there just on the fuel, you can see it's going to be absolutely worth doing that. So let's move on to some race runs here, and we're going to sort of talk you through some strategies. So this first strategy we're going to take a look at here is going to be a one stop. We're just going to be on the medium tyre to start off with. We'll get an idea of how long the medium tyres last, or I'll tell you how long the sort of medium tyres last, and then we move on to the hard tyres for the second stint, which I believe will be mandatory. And really your kind of pit stop is in many ways dictated by the fuel in this one as well. So as I said, the fuel is good for around about 5.5 laps when driving flat out. Now if you do some fuel saving, I managed to kind of get that up to about 6.5. It wasn't a whole lot of fuel saving I was doing. I was kind of changing the gear around about maybe 70%, 75% on the rev bar. But that was enough to kind of save around about 20% fuel, maybe even 25% fuel. Get an extra lap in the tank. However, on the medium tyres, I was definitely starting to find that they were getting a bit second hand come lap 5. So you're kind of, the sort of tyre life and your sort of fuel, if you like, are round about the same in the car. So in terms of doing the one stop, it's not going to be one of these ones where you're going to do 8-9 laps on the mediums and then just a couple of laps on the hard tyres. You are going to be forced into doing quite a stint on the hard tyres, just A, through the tyre wear, and B, through the fuel. So as I said, this run here was just a one stop. We did 5 laps in the medium, 5 laps in the hard tyres, and we did some fuel saving. Now the important thing to look at here is the sort of in lap, which was 2 minutes 6.0. And when we go on to take a look at the next run in a wee second, we're able to compare the kind of in lap there in terms of how much less this run here was than compared to the next run. The next run is going to be pretty much the same, only we're not going to save the fuel. So coming up to the finish line, we actually ran out of fuel right on the finish line, timed it absolutely perfectly on the fuel. You can see the sort of hard tyres were not too bad, not a great lap to finish off with, in all honesty with you. Monza, just one of these circuits, it's very easy to kind of just make a little bit of a mistake on the brake and lose a couple of tenths. So as I said here, this is the next run, this is the one stop. Again, 5 mediums, 5 hards, but with no fuel saving. Now take a look at lap 5 there. 2 minutes 11.5, I think that is the in lap. So obviously that's the lap where we come into the pits, we take the fuel on, then we compare that to a 2 minutes 6 versus when we're doing the fuel saving. So a 6-second gain on the pit stop, and if we look at the lap times, not a whole lot of difference between them. Slightly quicker in terms of some of the lap times, but the Jaguar seems to be a car that's very good at sort of maintaining lap time whilst saving fuel. And the sort of last run that we're going to do here, we're going to sort of take a look at what it's like to start on the hard tyres. This will give us an idea on the delta between the two tyres in terms of speed. Now coming out the pits, just a little tip, you want to be braking at around about 110, 115 metres. That should be enough time to sort of brake early enough to get you into the corner without running wide. It's very, very easy to run wide into turn 1 when you come out the pits. So just get that down, get your sort of braking point when you come out the pits. You easily lose half a second if you run wide. So coming to the end of the one stop run here, 4 hards, 6 mediums. Now I wanted to just sort of see if the tyres were capable of doing 6 laps if we kind of had a slightly lighter fuel load. It's not much lighter of course, but it is slightly lighter. And I would say 6 laps would be the absolute max on the mediums. I wouldn't want to be doing another lap on these tyres. Now the lap times have been slightly quicker than we were doing on the other run. You would expect that as well. The medium tyre, just as I said, the car is slightly lighter on those first couple of laps compared to when you start on the mediums. And that is the end of that run there. So as I said, I had to do all these runs in a lobby, so there's not a whole lot of point in looking too much footage. It's just me going round and round all by myself. And in the next part of the video, with some nice highlights footage in the background, we'll bring up all the strategies up on the screen with the finishing times, the fuel that I took on, and we'll talk through each one and the pros and cons of them. So along the top of the screen there, some of the sort of important information for this one. 10 laps, we've got the medium and hard tyres. Mandatory tyre will be hard. It may well be medium and hard, but you're going to have to run a hard tyre at some point in this one, absolutely no two doubts about that. And you're going to be running the medium tyre at some point anyway, because there is just not any really scope for doing a no stopper with just the hard tyre. Tyre multiplier times 13, fuel multiplier times 6. I know people look at those figures and think they're a bit crazy, but that's sometimes what you need to try and make a race interesting. If you take a 20-minute race and you want to give it some real nice strategy in there. And the fuel flow, 7 litres per second. The reason I wanted to put that in there is I did a Group 1 strategy guide, and I based all my figures on the fuel flow being 7 litres per second, and it turned out it was 10 litres per second in the race. So the information was a little bit off, but for this one, it's definitely 7 litres per second, and so the information in my sort of pit calculations should all be spot on, hopefully. So the first strategy we did was 5 mediums, 5 hards. We did some mild fuel saving, we're just sort of changing around about 70% on the bar. The best lap for that was 1 minute 48. When we did our pit stop, we took on 52% of fuel, and our pit time was 20.9 seconds. Now the finishing time for that one came in at 18 minutes 32.7. And then the next strategy underneath that is the one stop, 5 mediums, 5 hards, with no fuel saving. Best lap is pretty much the same. The Jaguar just does actually seem to keep its pace when you're doing the fuel saving. took on a massive 89% of fuel in that one, so that's what, 37% more fuel, and you can see the difference that makes in the pit time, 27.2 seconds compared to 20.9 seconds, and then that's pretty much reflected in the finishing time, which was 5 seconds slower. So we did gain a little bit of time back through not having to do the fuel saving in terms of lap time, but that's quite a big difference when it comes to the finish. So definitely you're going to have to do fuel saving in this one. I know some people don't like doing it, but it definitely is the quickest way to go about this race. The last strategy we did was we wanted to see how things looked when we started on the hard tyre. So we did 4 laps in the hard, 6 laps in the medium. We did the same kind of mild fuel saving as we did on the first strategy. Best lap was a 147.8, so a little bit faster than the other two. Fuel taken 55%, so 3% more than the one stop going 5 medium, 5 hard, but that was more because I wanted to give myself a little bit of extra fuel for attacking, because you're probably going to have to do some overtaking if you start on the hard tyres. Going to probably lose track position. Pit time 21.5 seconds, so 6 times more in the pits for that 3% fuel, but it was actually the fastest overall finishing time. Now, let's discard the sort of no fuel saving strategy, because you do have to fuel save in this one. Are you better to start on the mediums or better to start on the hards? Now, you might just sort of go where it's better to start on the hards, that is the quickest finishing time, but that's maybe not quite the full picture, because if you start on the mediums, you should have track position. I think if you start on the hards and then you're going to become possibly under pressure in the early stages of the race, and maybe possibly lose positions there, but in the flip sides you can maybe use that slipstream to sort of keep up. So it is a bit of a toss up between the two of them. You can see very, very similar finishing times. That is within the margin of error, so you're going to have to sort of see how the race unfolds. Starting on the mediums is probably going to be the safer way than starting on the hard tyres, but then you may become under pressure by people who have managed to sort of make the sort of strategy work on the medium tyres. Sorry, starting on the hard tyres. So I appreciate that I've done a whole lot of talking there, I've thrown a whole lot of numbers about, and if I'm totally honest with you, I'm a little bit confused myself. So in conclusion, this is a one-stop race. You are going to have to save fuel if you want to be competitive. You're going to have to run the hard tyre at some point, but the medium tyres are only good for maybe 6 laps at the absolute max if you're good at looking after tyre, or if your car's good at looking after tyres. So you're going to be looking at least 4 laps on the hard tyre. There's around about 1 second in performance between the tyres when they're at the same life on the same fuel, and that pretty much is it. It's a one-stop fuel saver. Be interesting to see what cars come to the fore in this one. I only tested the Jaguar. The Jaguar does seem very nice, but it's going to be, people will sort of find out what the sort of meta car is for fuel saving in this one. It can still be competitive, so that will be interesting to see how that all unfolds. But if you've made it to this point, I do appreciate it. Please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button if you like what we're doing in the channel, and until the next video, I'm now going to give my voice a rest, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.